Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. Really excited. We have Nando Villa with us Wednesday night, Nando Villa time. And we are so chomping at the bit about having our first guest on that we decided to open the show with him. And I'm talking about none other than Matt Christman, who you may know from Chapo Trap House. And he also has his own, do we call it a vlog?
I guess that's still the term, yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome. And thank you again so much for coming. So I just wanted to kind of like pick your brain, if you will, about what you're thinking right now, what you're thinking about making videos about, podcasting about, if you have any hope at all in this post-Bernie defeat world.
I don't have any hope or honestly doom when it comes to the future. I'm trying to let go of any expectation of what's to come. And what's helping me do that is focusing on grounding myself in the moment, because I feel like there's plenty of reasons not to be hopeful about the future in some abstract sense. But the thing that really comforts you at that level is just the fact that you don't know. No one really knows. You're always sort of flattering yourself to say that you know that we're doomed in some way. Things change and you can't anticipate it. So I try to leave that kind of, I see the stories and I get like the little chill, but I try not to wallow in it. I try to just remind myself that I can't really know the hour of the day, and that therefore my hope needs to be closer to home, because while it's very hard maybe to convince yourself that there's an objective case for optimism in a macro sense, I think everybody's life has some avenue that they can move forward in and have feeling like they might be able to see rewarding advances. And it might not even be political, but you need something to ground yourself before you can effectively be political.
It's like the book Radical Acceptance. I'm not even kidding. By
what is that?
It's a kind of like self-help book by I can't remember her name right now, so I'll have to get to that. Tara Brach. And it's about, as corny as it sounds, like you have to accept things in order to change them, which kind of reminds me a little bit of what you're saying, Matt. Not that you were saying it's about acceptance, but there is some stuff happening on the level of self, which I can't believe that I'm talking like this. I've been a little surprised. But I think that this is happening on a lot of segments of the left. Matt, I feel like when I met you, you weren't talking like this.
No, not at all.
So how would you describe your kind of evolution and what happened?
I mean, in the most blunt, cynical sense, you could say that it's just cope, that it's huffing straight copium. But to that I say, life, in fact, is cope. And all we're seeking in our lives is the most effective form, because the more delusional and cut with fantasy your cope is, the more of it you have to take for the less of a experience, and eventually you overdose. So I say this is pure uncut, the good shit, the good cope. And it's that, and it came out of just the realization that, okay, what we were pursuing was not close enough at hand to be grasped the way that we thought we could. Like the levels of power that were not as accessible to our organized action than we thought they were. So that means we have to refocus and step away from the drill bit and reapply the wedge to the fulcrum or whatever the hell. And that means refoundationing yourself in order to know how to make your first step forward. As Abe Lincoln said, if I had 8 hours, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend 3 of them sharpening my axe. And with the advent of COVID and the fall of the Bernie campaign, it was really a chance for everybody to get some axe sharpening time in. And that's what I did. And I think that the vlogs I started doing, I think shortly after quarantine started, were that weight stone that I was keening my axe against.
Yeah, I go back and forth, and I can never make up my mind, because I worked at a news organization, 2012, 2014. I hosted a nightly show about the midterm elections in 2014, and it's wild to think back at that time, and that there was just it felt like there was no politics at all. Like the debates at the time were just insane, just insanely irrelevant to what's going on in the world today. There is this kind of new, there is more of a like quote unquote left now, but on the other hand, it also seems like we've never been further away from power. That they managed to ram Joe Biden of all people down our throats in the middle of the worst economic crisis that we can remember, and just like an entire societal collapse, and we still are just thrust with Joe Biden on top of us, and I can't square those two things.
It's like the Smokey Robinson song, "A taste of honey's worse than none at all."
Yeah, because what we've built up is a significant kind of cultural self-conception of the left, but it does not engage productively with any kind of working class generally, like defined as such. It's self-selecting for people who are already sort of seeking political identities, which is that direction of radicalization it's retail, it's not wholesale, and it can't get the job done of actually creating a center of gravity that could push against the predominant tides of politics.
But isn't something that Chapo did, in part, didn't you try to and succeed to a certain extent at reaching out to people who weren't politicized or weren't necessarily seeking politicization or radicalization, but through the humor and through the kind of irreverence of the show were brought over there?
I think there were, but once again, I think that's a retail effect. You're talking about very random assembly. The number of people who are going to not have a political valence to their identity, who are going to encounter Chapo in the first place, that's already pretty small. And then within that, you're going to talk a much smaller subsection who are going to respond to the comedy, specifically since it's so deeply embedded in references to political culture at large. That, I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I don't think that it's an effective model for radicalization. What
is the model?
We don't have one, and I think that's what why people are getting back to first principles and trying to apply, basic, questions of what their politics are and how they're going to pursue them, because there doesn't seem to be a model for mobilization, and that means it's going to have to come from experimentation closer to people's lives than the internet. At least that's my feeling.
At a time when we're like farther apart from each other than ever.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Like just we're all at home. We're all at home all day, and we can't even go out. Or you're working the whole time. And either way, there's it's people ships passing each other in the night.
Right. I mean, I feel like the labor movement would be a great thing to have.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, right.
It'd be wonderful if we had that.
Yeah, a labor movement that wasn't like not just the dwindling numbers and the manufacturing overseas, but also like one that wasn't just a kind of arm of the Democratic Party. And I don't know how to build this stuff. And I do think like I think something great happened. Like, I do think that we saw that these ideas that for years and years and years, we were told that these ideas were fringe and that they were nice ideas, but they weren't something that we could ever like have most people galvanize around. And I do think that Sanders and a lot of other stuff, and part of it is the cultural stuff that came along with it, I think, or accompanied it. I do think that it's like maybe it's just like a first step. Not enough, but it isn't insignificant.
Yeah, I mean, it's the roll of the pebbles down the hill that presage the avalanche, maybe, but or it's just a bunch of rocks on the ground. We don't know. I mean, but we do know that we are in what has to be considered, a precipitate state. But whether things accumulate is going to be determined by the moment. And so in the meantime, when we don't know, people say, well, what should I be doing? My argument is stop running in the hamster wheel of chasing your tail to get the perfect position on these things, because your position is very irrelevant to the stuff that you're going to actually have to do. That's going to involve applying much more practical levels of analysis to situations. It's not going to be your finely tuned ship in a bottle of ideology that you've built by meticulously crafting arguments online and observing arguments online. Right. And if you stop doing that, like that space if you're still politically charged and motivated, you have to fill it somehow. And without that as a crutch, you've got to find it. And I don't know what it is for people, but it'll be there to be found if you're looking for it.